Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. Football season's here. There's only one place to go for tickets, and that is Game Time. You know I love Game Time. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks, makes getting tickets for your favorite live events easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You want to go to a football game or a concert? Just click on the event you want to attend, and Game Time gives you a seat preview and offers you the super deal. So I get the best bang for my buck, and that's what I'm looking for. Game Time also has the lowest price guarantee, or they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, right? Download the Game Time app. Doesn't take long. Create an account. Use my code, the redeem code, Colin, C-O-L-I-N, for $20 off your first purchase. C-O-L-I-N. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, time for another edition of Sharp or Square with my buddy Chad Millman, CCO Action Network, all odds provided by DraftKings. So last year, I had a rough first month and I caught fire. And one of the reasons I caught fire is I started noticing a trend in my picks, is that I was overthinking the room. And as this league has become more quarterback-centric, when all else fails, the best quarterback is winning the games regardless of the spread. And that Monday night's a great example, is everything told you, oh, those unlucky Saints. And then 2 plays in, you're like, I'm betting against Patrick Mahomes over Derek Carr. So a great example of that, to me, this week, I'm going to inverse it. Aaron Rodgers, since December of 2022, has had one 300-yard game. In that time, Davis Mills has had a couple. Okay. Desmond Ridder has had more than one. Is that because he's a pretty passer, and we tend to embrace pretty longer, the aging supermodel. We grow up with them. We can't let pretty go. We can let Peyton Manning was great, but he wasn't pretty. Aaron's pretty. He's not a very good quarterback anymore. He's not an efficient quarterback. So Josh Allen is really good. They're getting a bit healthier. This is a team that's gone through a chaotic week. They're still banged up on the offensive line. Josh Allen is significantly better than Aaron Rodgers. I am swallowing the 2.5 points. I'm going against the high energy of a interim coach. Let's go backwards, sharp or square.
I mean, it's square as can be. You're going to take a road favorite in the division. That is a trend that will work against you over time. You are going to buy a team. Well, the Bills obviously are on a 2-game losing streak. You're going against a team that is much more undervalued in the Jets, playing at home because they are going through a coaching change and because there has been all this chaos in their organization for the past month. So you're really playing into what the public wants. The public, by the way, are betting the Bills at about a 85 to 90% clip. And that's another time when you want to fade the public. So it's square. This line is moved in the Bills' direction. All the money is coming. All the bets are on the Bills. The wise guys have bet this down to 2. It goes back up to 2.5. They take it again. It goes back down to 2. Wise guys are on the Jets. Jets.
I do not believe, although I said the Denver Broncos would be significantly better. They were my choice. Last year, I said the Rams are not a 6-win team. This year, I said the Broncos personnel offensively is not a 5-win team. They're going to win 8 or 9, probably don't make the playoffs. They're not on a 3-game heater. That said, Bo Nix against Justin Herbert, who's healthy with both tackles and offensive coach off a bye. Chargers minus 2.5 at Denver. Again, I'll take the divisional road favorite. It is a mismatch at quarterback. I do not believe the Denver Broncos are a 4-game winning streak team. I am selling them at a high point, sharp or square.
There's a couple games this week where there is zero consensus and very strong opinions on both sides. And this is one of those games. I will say that I'm with you. My favorite co-host, Simon Hunter, Professional Better, is with you. This line was at 3, got bet down to 2.5. Then it goes back up to 3. Then it gets bet down. What that is telling you is that when the game is at 2.5, professionals, a certain section of professionals love the Chargers. And when the game is at 3, a different group likes the Broncos. And they are basically just playing each other right now. They are just betting back and forth, back and forth.
Oh,
And like, what's interesting about these games, and we've talked a little bit about this, when it comes to people like Jim Harbaugh and also people like Dan Campbell, they are building from the inside out. They are building from the line of scrimmage. And with Harbaugh and Campbell both, it's really been about the offensive line. So Joe Alt coming back, hopefully Rashawn Slater coming back for the Chargers. That will mitigate the Broncos' greatest strength, which is their pass rush, which this year is top 5 in pressure rate and is really the reason why the Broncos have been staying in the games they're staying. So to me, I like the Chargers here because I think that they have the better quarterback, and I don't believe in Bo Nix yet. I think they've won with some smoke and mirrors right now, but you are not going to find a sharp side or a square side on this. I will say the Broncos are a very public dog because they've been winning. The public is coming in. So if you're looking for how to fade, you do want to fade the Broncos.
Let's go to London. I think Caleb Williams and his offensive cohorts went to Shane Waldron and said, we're not a Pop Warner team. Give us more. Since that time, Caleb Williams is completing 71% of his throws and doesn't have a turnover. The Jaguars just got out of a long losing streak and almost gave that game away. Whereas the Bears, I can look at them and go, excellent defensive coaching. And I can look at Caleb Williams and say, ascending, young, star quarterback. There is nothing about the Jaguars I can definitively say I like. The Bears are starting to add to the things I like. We know that Eberflus can coach defense. That's inarguable. It's like Robert Saleh. You don't have to love him. He knew defense. I'm going to take the Bears minus 1.5 in London. Favorites do well overseas.
Favorites are, I think, 35-10.
Yeah.
Overseas.
I don't know why.
And by the way, I think it's something like 30-14-1 against the spread, including this past week, Minnesota beating up on the Jets, right? So the wise guys have been betting the Jags in this spot. They're not fully bought in on the Bears. They feel like the Bears have beaten bad teams. And until the Panthers, they didn't look that great beating the Colts. They didn't look that great beating the Rams. I agree with you what you're saying about Caleb Williams. He's definitely taking steps. And it's not like the Jags defense is anything that is lighting up the league or that people are afraid of. And to your point, like Doug Peterson, after that touchdown pass to Alec Pierce by Joe Flacco in that game, I thought Doug Peterson wanted to disappear into a hole. Like he was on the balls of his feet, his elbows on his knees. Like he looked devastated. Like, I don't know what to do with this team anymore. So this is not a good team, but they're still betting the Jags. And I'll be honest with you, it's all trend based and model based. There is nothing on the field that makes any professional better look at this and say, oh yeah, I got to take the Jags. This is where, by the way, your quarterback theory might play out because the better quarterback wins. And I don't think there's anyone who will say that Caleb Williams isn't ascendant and that Trevor Lawrence is a little bit plateaued or even regressing right now. I think some of the things that the wise guys like, if it's anything, it's about the travel. There is a very significant trend and record of the team that has played in London before performing better because it is so sort of dislocating for both teams that when you've had that experience, it plays to your strength.
So I have this belief when there's a line, most lines are 3.5, 2.5, 6.5, 7, 7.5. But when the line's 4.5 to 5, what they're telling you is one team is clearly better. And that tells me that Green Bay -5 is better than Arizona. So I tend to believe that young quarterbacks, Jordan Love still qualifies as that, at home are more comfortable. I think Jordan Love isn't totally healthy, but I think he's getting there now. Christian Watson practiced this week. I picked Green Bay to win the division. Jordan Love's injury slowed that down. I have seen now a half here or a half there where they look really good. I think they put it all together. Arizona is a celebratory young team that off a win could be flat. I don't trust them week to week. I would swallow the points 5 and take Green Bay
Totally
sharp or
sharp.
square.
It's the side. The Cardinals are one of those public teams. We just talked about it with the Broncos and
Yeah. They're
yeah,
fun to
like they're
watch.
really fun to watch. And look, they just had their Super Bowl, right? The Cardinals right now are in second place in their division, and the Niners are in third because they're both 2-3, and the Cardinals beat the Niners. The challenge with Kyler Murray is there's so much inconsistency. And we liked what we saw, Trey McBride. But again, like they won that game because at the end of it, the Niners didn't have a kicker. And so they had to make really unorthodox decisions when they were in the red zone, when otherwise they might have been kicking field goals. And if not for a fumble, the Cardinals don't get the ball back and they don't get a chance to drive for the game-winning kick, right? So
Right.
we have to take some of this Cardinal ascendancy with a little bit of a grain of salt. And I think I'm seeing the same thing that you are with the Packers. Number one, Matt LaFleur is a genius when it comes to scheming. He is clearly going to be a better coach than Jonathan Gannon is going to be. And I also think the Packers defense this year, their defensive backfield especially, very opportunistic. Already more interceptions this year that was before last week than they had all of last year. So while there's still holes in their defense, they're at least getting the turnovers that they hadn't been getting in the past. And to me, I feel like we are 3 weeks into Jordan Love being back. This is the first game back where he's not going to be facing a really challenging defense at home, i.e. Brian Flores and the Vikings. We saw what they did in the second half when they made the adjustments and were able to come back against the Vikings. I agree with you. Wise guys agree with you. Packers are the side.
So Commanders +6.5 is my side. Here's why. Lamar Jackson eats the NFC because you can't duplicate aesthetically, stylistically what he does in practice, except Washington can. They have Lamar Jackson light. So they see Lamar Jackson light in practice every day. I'm also a believer until you prove otherwise, I'm going to believe what my eyes tell me. Washington's really good, way too good to give them 6.5. If they wouldn't have been the league's tire fire for a decade, you'd say this line's ridiculous. If anybody else was playing this well for 5 weeks, any other team, maybe outside of Carolina, there would be complete buy-in. There's utter skepticism. They're good. They have Lamar light. Washington's seen this at practice. I'm taking the point sharp
So
or
it's
square.
square. But when you look at the numbers here, the betting tickets are on the Commanders. They are the fly high team that everybody loves right now. There's no doubt about it. But you can see the money is on the Ravens. And when you have a split between tickets and money, tickets represents the public, money represents the sharps, right? And these guys have been looking to sell the Commanders. So it's very possible they will continue to be wrong. And you are right, right? Because they wanted to sell the Commanders last week and they lost. They wanted to sell the Commanders the week before and they lost. They are going to keep doubling, tripling down on selling the Commanders until they're eventually right. Matchup wise, this does play to the Ravens' strengths. They are a tremendous running team right now, one of the best in the league, and they are going against a terrible, terrible run defense, especially in early downs. Now, we've said this before, the Ravens last year in the AFC title game, if they had just run the ball, they win that game. Instead, they put it in Lamar's
Yeah.
hands. So you have to hope that they actually go with the game plan that will give them the best chance to win. Historically, teams that are overachieving, like the Commanders, and when I say overachieving, meaning they are covering the point spread by about 5 points per game. Those teams going forward in every game thereafter until there is enough regression that it evens out, cover at about a 43% clip. This is what really worries Ravens bettors. Okay. Underdogs this year, 6+ points, 11-8 straight up,
Yeah.
16-2-1 against the spread. And this is one of those weeks. We got a few of these games. We got this one. We got the Patriots. We got the Browns. We got the Eagles. We got the Panthers, and the Falcons. Like, it's a more big spreads than we've had at any point so far this season. But here is what's really scaring Ravens backers. You could see this game. Ravens are up by 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Any number like that, and the back door is wide open, and the Ravens pass defense is soft, and Jaden Daniels will not quit. This Commanders team will not quit. They might know they're not going to win the game, but they might score that back door. So it's going to be a sweat. It is not going to be it's a blowout, and by the middle of the third quarter, Ravens bettors feel like they can, turn on a cooking show.
Okay, one thing that almost guarantees consistency, college or pro football, is a really good offensive line. You kind of get the same Detroit team every weekend. People just don't quite realize how good the New York Giants offensive line is. That Seattle game wasn't close. I don't care what the score was. Mike McDonald's team couldn't get them off the field. Danny Dimes doesn't turn the ball over without Malik Neighbors, without Singletary, completely controlled the line of scrimmage. They're not as good as Detroit. But Cincinnati can't stop anything. And this, very quietly, because it's been so bad for so many years, this Giants O-line reminds me of the Giants D-line. It controls most of the teams it plays. I'm taking the 3.5 points. New York plus 3.5 at home.
Totally sharp. I'm surprised you chose this one. Not because I don't have faith in your ability to be super sharp, because you truly are a maven of the media, a master of content, and a man who understands where the audience is going and what they want to hear. But this just felt like the kind of game you'd want to ignore unless it's a primetime game. But you're 100% right. The wise guys are on the Giants here. This line actually, it opened at 3.5, and like you can see in the juice, the VIG, the commission, the way the bookmakers start to play with those things. Normally the number's at -110. When it starts to go up, -115, -120, that's basically them saying to you, all right, it's going to move. Or the other side, +115, +120. This number is going to move to 3. And that's because the wise guys are buying the hook, the 0.5 point for the Giants, because they feel the same way you do. They think this team has been balling out lately. Daniel Jones has been playing much better. Brian Daboll has been calling great game plans the past couple of weeks. And look, like, go back, what was it, 3 weeks ago? They're playing the Commanders. They don't score any touchdowns. And like, that's why they lose that game. I know it's a weird thing to say, oh, look, this team is better than you think, but one ball bounces a different way. And the Commanders aren't even 6.5 point underdogs. They're more. And no one's saying, oh, the Giants really shouldn't be any more than the Giants. They're saying the Giants should be any more than a field goal against the Bengals at home. So that's an interesting pick by you.
So let's go to the best offensive line in football, Detroit. So this line was at 3.5, and I said on the air on FS1, if it comes down to 3, I'm taking Detroit. So a couple things. Dallas is the Arizona Cardinals or the Buffalo Bills of the league. I'm not really sure what team I get. Just depends on the matchup and the mood. I get the same, and that's because Dallas has a very left tackle, revolving door, injuries. You don't know what they are with their offensive line. It's matchup based. Detroit's a better team. Detroit is a completely consistent team. Listen, they give up yards. They do on the back end. I mean, Geno Smith had 38 first downs against them, and that worries me. But Hutchinson and the left tackle for Dallas, yikes. I know it's a road favorite, but at 3, sharper square, I like
Well,
Detroit.
it's not sharp, right? Nobody in their right mind is going to say, as a professional bettor, yes, the right side here is the road favorite and the public side playing in Dallas. But you said something that is so on point, and you talk about quarterbacks and bad quarterbacks and good quarterbacks as being sort of a decision maker for you. For me, more and more, it's becoming about who controls the line of scrimmage. Because to me, that is the most consistent and dependable way a team can define performance and live up to expectations, right? There's going to be some matchup issue at some point on the edges. A running back may get hurt, a quarterback is having a bad game, but offensive line, defensive line consistency is pretty easy to mark. The Lions, they're top 5, top 2 dominant, not just as an offensive line, but as a defensive line. But when you look at their offensive line across the board, like, this is why this team is a top 5 overall offensive team right now. And to me, what's really fascinating is you look at the Jared Goff game. He went 18 for 18, but it wasn't Jared Goff going 35 of 40 for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, working outside of the offense because it was a shootout. Jared Goff working within the confines of the offense. Ben Johnson calling a great game. Dan Campbell clearly has said, we're not ourselves these first few games. Let's get back to basics. Football is a violent game. We are built to be violent. So to me, every advanced metric that every geek can think of favors the Lions here. And every other metric, when you look at the Cowboys and you shake it out, it basically says their defense, especially against the run, is trash. I don't know if the wise guys will be with you. I know I will be. We're making an executive decision, Colin. We're going with the Lions.
Okay, the most obvious line of the week. I mean, this is where I feel like this is the squarest of the square lines, and I hate it. Atlanta plays an unbelievable game. Everybody loves Kirk Cousins. It's a standalone game. He throws for over 5 football fields. And now in a division rivalry game, they go to Carolina, who's pretty good but was humiliated, and they have to give up 6 points. The side is Carolina. It is a corner of a corner TV game. But that to me was the one, like, that should be like a 3. It's a 6. It's the Panthers.
I mean,
sharper
look, it's
square.
sharp. You have to. And I'm so glad you said it. Like, I was afraid at the end when you're like, give me the game I missed, or give me the ugly game that I didn't mention. I was afraid I was going to have to bring this one up because, look, I'm so sick of having to bet on the Carolina Panthers and the lines being so wrong and yet them still being the wrong side. The Falcons have 3 wins this season that have come by a combined 9 points, and they probably should have lost all those. In week 2, they had a game-winning 2-minute drive against the Eagles when the Eagles had a 97.6% win probability with less than 2 minutes remaining. Week 3, game-winning 58-yard field goal after the Saints had an 84.5% win probability with 41 seconds left. Week 5, overtime win. Kirk Cousins throws for, 1,000. The Bucs had a 93% win probability with 22 seconds left. 93% of the tickets are on the Falcons, a nearly touchdown road favorite. Of course, the Panthers are the side here. Here's why it's super extra scary. The one thing the Panthers have been great at this season, top 2 in run blocking. They are missing two key offensive linemen, and that's really why they got humiliated against the Bears, is because all of a sudden the one thing they were great at that the Bears can't defend is the run, and they couldn't do it anymore. And that's also the same here. Can they run the ball against a weak rush defense for the Falcons? That's going to be the deciding factor, but you still got to pull the trigger.
Finally, give me a game I missed. It's usually an ugly game because I really hit on the big ones. Is there something I missed? He puts on the glasses, by the way, for our podcast audience.
This is serious. I'm going to look at my notes because truly you did hit every game, and even the
I mean, I didn't touch the Steelers, Raiders. I didn't touch the Colts. I have not bet the Colts all year. They're getting 3 on the road at Tennessee. And the reason I don't do it is I never know if Anthony Richardson can get through a game. So I think
that's exactly right. And look, what's interesting about that game, just as an aside, the Colts, the Titans started off as the favorites in that game as a minus a point favorites. Then it flipped, and all of a sudden the Titans got as low as +1.5. And then when all of a sudden the news came out that Anthony Richardson might be playing, the line flipped back to Tennessee being a 2.5 point favorite. Now it's up to 3. So that game's a mess. You want to stay away from games where the line is flipping back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
I don't want to talk about this game, but every wise guy is on New England. Like they're
Oh, no, that J-Mac's pick of the week. He said, no Nico Collins, no Joe Mixon. By the way, they could have easily lost the Buffalo game. They're off a big win.
It's like they haven't been playing.
New England's +7
New England's
at home.
+7. And actually, in a lot of places, the line is ticked down to 6.5, which tells you that the wise guys are on New England because the tickets in this game are all on Houston. And look, I think that the Nico Collins factor is important. CJ Stroud and this offense, they have not been very good on first and second down, and it's putting him in bad spots on third down and fourth down. His security blanket has been Nico Collins, who has been a monster this year, the best receiver in football. Now he's out. The New England defense is not terrible. It's middle of the road. Their offensive line is awful, but I actually think that plays to some of the quarterback change, which is Drake May. He's going to be a 1-read, 2-read, pull it and run athlete in this game, right? And so it doesn't matter how bad the offensive line is. Some people could say you're throwing this guy to the wolves. Kind of doesn't matter. He's going to be out of the pocket. He's going to be running draws, whatever it's going to be. This New England team, it's been playing teams tough. So the wise guys are on New England here. I'm sorry. I hate doing it.
I'd like to apologize to the audience for having to listen to the breakdown.
I'm upset that I'm going to have to watch this game. Like I'm upset that it's honestly the game I've bet the most on so far this week. And
how about this?
Yeah.
Let me throw you one college game. The college game of the year is Oregon getting about a field goal. It was like 4. Now it's down to 3 against Ohio State. I think they could meet in the playoff. I think Eugene, they've won 34 of 35 at home. Dylan Gabriel's completing almost 80% of his throws. They have their O-line right. I think Ohio State's better, but I think putting kids, if you go look at Ohio State against top 10 teams, they've actually not been very good the last 3 years. I think I would take Oregon in the points.
Yeah, I would too. I think that the quarterback play for Ohio State is, the reason why their receivers keep making so many fantastic catches is because the throws aren't always that good. And, it's interesting. What did Nick Saban say on game day? He's like, you spend $20 million, it doesn't really matter. You got to spend the right $20 million on the right guys. And I think this is the beginning of a gauntlet for Ohio State. They spent that $20 million at probably right before they're about to have the hardest schedule that they have had in years to get to a national championship contending position. I think we all believe they'll make the playoff, but it's no guarantee. You got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, 2, 3, 4. Like that Big Ten now is brutal. So I agree with you. I like Oregon.
Chad Millman, CCO Action Network, all odds provided by DraftKings.
Talk to you soon, man.